Much for being here today for what is going to be a very, very exciting announcement for our community. I just want to start off by thanking everybody here in attendance in beautiful Cobourg in Northumberland County. For all of my fellow elected officials that are here today, I know everyone will be speaking, but I would like to obviously start by thanking my colleague, Minister Steve Clark. Thank you very much for joining me here. Our Parliamentary Assistant, Adam Vaughan. Thank you very much for being here in Cobourg for the exciting announcement. My colleague, MP Philip Lawrence. Thank you, Philip, for your leadership in our community, and of course our Warden Sanderson, and Chair here, and no stranger to politics as well, Gil Brockenier. Thank you for joining me at the podium, and to all of you, our county council who are here today. But I'd like to start by saying a specific thank you to our county and to the remarkable social services team that I've had the privilege of getting to know, I would say, on a much deeper level since COVID-19. COVID-19 has hit all of our communities, and it's affected the most vulnerable in our community, more so than many. And when we're faced with such sort of global pandemics and global challenges, some of the silver linings are really having a deeper understanding of the remarkable people on the front lines. And we've talked a lot about, of course, the front lines over the past number of weeks. So I'd like to thank the social services team on the front lines, working with the most vulnerable in our community, working with folks in Northumberland, Peterborough South, who want to get a house over their head, the most important tenant to really long-term prosperity. And I know that today's exciting announcement is going to be welcome news for our community. As the MPP for Northumberland, Peterborough South, I'm always excited to see projects like this. Communities across Ontario are, of course, so unique, but the one thing that binds us is our collective need for affordable housing that meets the budgetary demands of everyday Ontarians. We know that housing has become increasingly unaffordable for many. So as a government, we must work as elected officials to provide more affordable housing options for people so that they can have a roof over their head. The county report said that over 48, I believe, % of residents in Northumberland, Peterborough South pay over 30% of their annual income on rent. That's a statistic that all of us need to collectively work together to change. And to change that, it starts by investing in affordable housing. And I'm proud to join my colleague, Minister Steve Clark, in taking tangible steps through More Homes, More Choice and a number of other initiatives to get there. But before we get to all of the speakers, again, I would just like to thank all of you for being here today. And for today's exciting announcement for the community of Northumberland, Peterborough South, I would like to welcome Parliamentary Assistant Adam Vaughan to the podium. Parliamentary Assistant Vaughan, thank you for your leadership.
My first press conference masked, so now I'm going to unmask myself. But first of all, I'd like to pick up my speaking. Not that I use them, but I would like to begin, first of all, by acknowledging that we're on the traditional territory in Northumberland County of the Anishinaabe, Huron-Wendat, and the Haudenosaunee Iroquois, as well as the Ojibwe or Chippewa people. It's interesting to note as we talk about housing that the architecture of the Anishinaabe people is the longhouse. The longhouse, I think, is actually a pretty good symbol for today's announcement, because the longhouse grows and models itself around the community and changes over time as the community changes. And so while these homes were built a few decades ago, as we think about the challenges facing us, especially in a time of a pandemic around COVID, and we think about the needs that are changing and evolving and emerging in this part of Ontario, that idea of growing the housing, of changing the housing to accommodate the demographics that are emerging in the Cobourg area and in this county, it's a really good model that we can learn from and pull from. And so as we do land acknowledgements, it's of course important to remember our history, but it's also important to remember some of the teachings that those people have given us as we move forward. And those teachings for far too long were ignored, and as part of reconciliation, as part of a movement towards making sure we all feel safe in our home, this housing announcement builds, I hope, on that history. This is a phenomenal project. We look at projects across housing neighborhoods across Canada, and we see ideas that were used in the 60s and the 50s and sometimes as late as the 70s is sort of these homes in park-like settings, but they aren't very intense, and there's lots of sort of what we refer to sometimes in planning circles as orphan public space. It's the spacing that the housing used that was sort of the style of the day. But when you bring new architecture, new planning, and new needs to the mix, you start to reimagine what housing could look like on the same plot of land and what it could transform itself into and how we can actually extend the housing capacity of public assets. And that's exactly what's happening here. As people moved out and made decisions in their life to live in different parts of the community, units have been held back. And now we're in a position where we have some vacant units and some units that will soon be vacant, and that will allow us to reimagine this particular housing project. The National Housing Strategy understands this as an evolutionary part of the housing system. The idea is that we will support and we will finance and we will fund with our partners the transformation of housing, the repair of housing, the construction of housing, the subsidizing of tenants to create whole communities out of public assets we currently have right now, and in doing so, provide the housing required to sustain the demographics of a community. So these 18 units become 40 units. There's a mix of rent geared to income, there's a market rent, and everything else in between. And this is part of a partnership, part of a 10-year housing accord that our government has signed with the province of Ontario and the government of Ontario to work together to bring our assets and our community opportunities to be realized. But I'll also say this, the gratitude that was extended to the social service sector in this gathering, you can't do this without good, strong municipal partners. You can't do this without good, strong local leadership that brings the community together on the ground to create these opportunities. So while we as the federal government and the provincial government are here to invest into this community, the fertile ground this housing project will spring from is effectively managed and created and sustained by the local municipalities. And we know that local municipalities are a critical part of the housing system and a critical part of the way in which we're going to support the needs of Canadians and people living in Ontario, and in particular people living here in Cobourg. And so I'm pleased to announce the $5.7 million, the co-investment into this with the province of Ontario through the Ontario Canada Community Housing Initiative. And I'm very, very happy to introduce my colleague. This is just one of several announcements we've made in the last few months, and I hope there are several more to come this summer and dozens more in the fall, because one thing that COVID has taught us is that housing is a human right. It's made even more obvious during COVID. When we asked Canadians to isolate, when Ontario gave the orders to secure yourself at home, it assumed that people had a safe and a secure place to call home. And without a safe and secure place to call home, you couldn't isolate. And so we need to step up on this front, because housing is more than just simply shelter. It's also part of our healthcare system. And I know that if the provinces and the cities and the federal government can work together, we can deliver housing, health, and prosperity and choices for Canadians, regardless of whether they live in big cities, smaller communities, whether they're in public housing, social housing, private housing. We work together, we can meet the needs of all Canadians and build stronger, safer communities and more prosperous communities as well, because let's not forget the fact there'll be jobs on site. So with that, thanks very much, and to Minister Clark, well done.
Well, thanks, Parliamentary Secretary Vaughan, and I too want to share your enthusiasm. We've had a number of joint announcements, MP Vaughan and I, and it just speaks to the importance of the National Housing Strategy, and I'm so pleased that our two governments can work together. And I was saying to Adam just before the announcement, the incredible friendship that I've struck up with Minister Hussain since the pandemic. We're just a text or a call away, and I think that's incredibly speaks to a point that MP Vaughan made about the fact that during the pandemic we had incredible cooperation between all three levels of government, and it's exactly the way it should be. There was no partisanship. There was continual communication between our municipal partners, our provincial colleagues, and the federal government. And I want to thank Parliamentary Secretary Vaughan and Minister Hussain for their commitment to housing. I also want to tell you that I don't think that I could have made the trip from Queen's Park back to Brockville one more time. I don't think that MPP Piccini, and I'm sure your MP and your warden and your other local officials will attest to this, I don't think I could have made it back to Brockville one more time without stopping into Coburg. This is exactly the tenacity that you've had. You know, he's petitioned me, he's videoed challenges to me, he's been unwavering in his support for affordable housing here in Northumberland, Peterborough South, and I just would ask you to give a round of applause for your local MPP, David Piccini. His advocacy is really the reason that I'm here today. And I'm sure you've heard me say this before. I know the county officials have heard me say this at events like AMO, but you know, protecting the health and safety of Ontarians is our number one priority as our government. And we know that the particular impact that COVID-19 has created in our communities has been especially challenging. So I do want to, as I've done before, thank all of our municipal partners, both elected and appointed, for the tremendous work that they've done under unprecedented times because of COVID-19. And I also want to say that in Coburg, the Northumberland County Housing Corporation has played a vital role in maintaining the health of this community. I want to thank you, Chair, and members of the board, along with the Warden and members of County Council, for your commitment. You provide much needed housing for low-income Ontarians, and I want to thank you. Our government has announced a range of measures that will help Ontarians during this unprecedented time. The one I'd like to highlight is the $350 million that we've put forward as part of our Social Service Relief Fund across Ontario. And right here in Northumberland County, $1.3 million was our initial investment that's gone to help the municipality and social service providers with things such as shelters, food bank assistance, emergency services that will help our charities and our nonprofits deliver critical services. And you know, the county has been particularly responsive with that 1.3 million. And again, I want to say to my colleague MPP Piccini that I hope he will visit and thank some of those frontline charities and food banks for the work that they've been able to do with the Social Service Relief Fund that our government was able to provide. We also understand that the work collaboratively between the county and the Housing Corporation do to keep people and to give people a place to call home, and that's why we're here today. So I'm pleased to be here to join with your MPP, your MP, Parliamentary Secretary Vaughan, and county officials and the Housing Corporation officials to celebrate that $5.7 million investment under the Canada-Ontario Community Housing Initiative to build more units here as part of the Elgin Street complex. And as Parliamentary Secretary Vaughan said today, you know, 18 families live here, but the new complex is going to provide housing to 40 families, and I think that's very exciting. The wide range of different size units, from 1 bedroom to 4 bedroom. The fact that Minister Raymond Cho would want me to celebrate the 9 accessible units. This development is a great example of a community creating a solution to meet a high demand. And I challenged communities last year at AMO to deliver to me and to their communities a shovel-ready project. And the county and the Housing Corporation answered that call. And thank you. Creating practical solutions to improve community housing and increase our housing supply is a critical part of our community housing renewal strategy. And when we made that strategy public in April, we really wanted to challenge people that were in the system to look at, again, innovative ways to help retain, repair, but most importantly, grow our supply of community housing, especially as a number of those agreements came to the end of their mortgage. And the county has certainly responded. I know that it was a concern of nonprofits like the Housing Corporation here in Northumberland. I know it was top of mind when we created the Community Housing Renewal Strategy. It recognizes that our community housing system in Ontario is very diverse. A one-size-fits-all approach would not work. So we have to propose to tailor these type of programs to meet local needs. On Tuesday, our government passed the Protecting Tenants and Strengthening Community Housing Act, which really lays the groundwork for us to empower our service managers and our stakeholders to protect the existing stock, but also to create new community stock. And I can tell you, and I'll tell your MPP, that I will use the example here in Northumberland County on exactly the way that our government wants to move forward. So you are a model for other community housing providers in Ontario. Supporting the Elgin Park project is just one way that we're working with you to create a community that provides a more efficient and more sustainable community housing process. So I want to thank you all for being here. I want to appreciate the great advocacy of all the people behind me, but we've got lots more to do. And I look forward to continuing to work with the county, the Housing Corporation, our federal colleagues, our municipal partners, and the pit bull that I sit with in the Ontario Legislature. So thank you very much for having me. All the best.
Thank you very much, Minister, for those remarks, very kind remarks. I'd like to now introduce County Warden Bob Sanderson to deliver a few remarks.
It's not part of mine. I have a script here. I don't always follow it, but I see Kate Campbell, our communication manager's here, so I'll try to have her not give me a hard time afterwards. Talking about collaboration, we just come down from the Trent Hills Emergency Services Facility, which was also a shared service accomplishment with the county. And when I'm here with the county, when I let a truck go by, I'm honored to represent the county. The county is as good as the people who live in the county. It's as good as the municipalities live in and function in the municipalities. I see most of our council is here. We have a quorum. I'm going to put a vote forward very shortly and see what we can do. So anyway, I am Bob Sanderson, Warden of Northumberland County, and obviously I'd like to thank MP Vaughan, Minister Clark, for making the trip to Northumberland County. And as he said, he's going by quite often, and we'll try to get him to stop in more often. Not always will he have to leave money. He can have one of our fine craft beers or something. And of course, you've heard it, thanks to MPP Piccini. You know, he is just an advocate of our municipalities. He's a supporter, and he's tireless. He set the bar pretty high. I don't know how that's going to be kept through the next few years, but it's definitely a challenge, but we'll give him all the support we can. So this investment announced today is mission-critical funding. It'll turn the vision for Elgin Park redevelopment project into a reality for this community. And through the development of the 2019 affordable housing strategy, as well as other housing and homelessness plans, Northumberland County has worked with the community. So we better understand residents' specific housing needs and to develop strategic actions to address those needs. The average household income in Northumberland County is below the provincial average, making affordability even a more critical issue. And in addition to affordability, availability is also an issue. The rental vacancy in Northumberland County is sitting at about 1.2% in 2019 for purpose-built rental units. So the need is high on two perspectives. These factors have contributed to an expansion of the centralized wait list for subsidized housing. So as we stand here before you today, there are around 1,000 households on this list, with the demand for units highest here in the town of Cobourg. Elgin Park redevelopment project responds to the critical needs for additional rent-to-gear income and purpose-built rental housings here in Northumberland. We announced plans for this project in 2019 for the redevelopment of community housing here on Elgin Street to increase the number of rent-geared to income and market rent housing units at this location, moving from 18 to 40. And we are thrilled today that MP Vaughan and the Minister Clark have brought us news that this project will move forward with resounding support from our government partners. With this investment, we will increase our local stock of affordable housing in response to a very urgent need as we strive to ensure that all people in Northumberland have a safe and affordable place to live. And I want to thank Mayor John Henderson and the town of Coburg for the collaboration and the support and the move on this important project, getting it moving forward in our community. And also thank you, as mentioned, to the Board of Northumberland County Housing Corporation for the expertise and insight they are contributing to the design and development process. And our sincerest thanks once again to the federal government and the provincial government for working collaboratively for the needs of the community. And it's a wonderful concept that we would like to see continue. And I also want to just mention the amount of support, not only that Northumberland is getting, but the leadership and support that we're getting within the province of Ontario. There has been very big demands put upon this government. There are huge concerns within the municipalities. And I've got to tell you from my heart that I think our provincial government and all our representatives have stepped forward and strongly provided leadership to us. And today is also just a part of that leadership that we're seeing. So again, on behalf of you all, I'm very honored to be here, and I want to thank you all for what you've done today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Warden Sanderson. I would now like to invite to the podium Gil Brockenier, Chair of Northumberland County Housing Corporation, for a few remarks. Thank you, Gil.
Thank you very much, David. I think everybody knows who I am now. I am the chair of the Northumberland County Housing Corporation. So we're very honored today to welcome MP Adam Vaughan and Ontario Minister of Affairs and Housing Steve Clark to our community to share this exceptional news with us today. But I'd also like to take this opportunity to personally thank MPP David Piccini for his continued support all through Northumberland County. So David, thank you very much for that. Affordable housing is a critical issue in Northumberland and across Ontario. Now, as Warden Sanderson noted, the need for purpose-built rental units in Northumberland is now at an all-time high. So this investment will have a significant impact on our community. With this funding, Northumberland County and NCHC can confidently move forward with plans to expand the community's available rental stock and increase diversity of the overall housing supply, which is so important. NCHC administers the largest portfolio of subsidized housing in Northumberland and is one of the largest landlords throughout our community. At the direction of the Northumberland County, who happens to be our sole shareholder, we currently deliver rent-geared-to-income housing for 344 low-income households across our community. Now, the design plans for Elgin Park Redevelopment project will ultimately see this portfolio grow to 366 housing units. Pretty significant. So these plans actually envision construction of 4 new 10-unit buildings, including 9 fully accessible units, along with 14 one-bedroom units, which are the highest waitlist demand. These modern units are being designed to meet the needs of our community, and we're excited to get phase 1 of construction, which will be the first 20 units, underway before the end of this year. With the launch of the affordable housing strategy in March of 2019, Northumberland County reaffirmed its commitment to leveraging new tools and tactics to encourage the development of additional rental units in Northumberland and expand the range of affordable housing options for our community. The NCHC is pleased to provide leadership and expertise to propel forward this vital mandate, and we look forward to continued partnerships to see this important project through to its completion. So I would like to extend special thanks to Northumberland County staff for spearheading the affordable housing strategy and identifying local needs, and for advancing the opportunity so that we can move forward. So I extend A huge thank you to the federal and provincial governments for recognizing the need in Northumberland County and for partnering with us to help more low-income residents achieve quality of life through safe, stable, and affordable housing. We look forward to keeping everyone apprised of the progress of this exciting bill, and I want to thank you all for coming.
It's a celebration, the confetti. In closing, I just wanted to say health and our economy go hand in hand, and we know an important social determinant of health is housing. So expanding that housing supply, expanding affordable options for residents of Northumberland, Peterborough South is so important. And I'd like to thank everyone who's joined me here today. I'd like to thank leadership at all levels of government working closely to deliver for our residents, because this is why we serve, this is what it's all about, supporting the people we represent. Again, the tolls and or roadblocks that we were going to have to face will be brought down on your way to Ottawa as well. So we appreciate the investment in Northumberland, Peterborough South, and to all of you, thank you very much for coming. I'm going to close by inviting any questions from the media who are here today. If you have any questions, please, of anyone. Okay.
I have a question for Minister Clark. Been noting in the news lately that there have been some demonstrations against Bill 184, which is supposed to help with and there's been a assertion made that this bill will actually speed up evictions. How would you respond to that?
Well, first of all, the Protecting Tenants and Strengthening Community Housing Act covers a wide range. It's not just a bill that deals with the Residential Tenancies Act. Some of the most important sections of the bill actually relate to community housing and are the subject of a Auditor General's report back by the previous government that our government is moving forward and implementing. In terms of the changes to the Landlord-Tenant Board process, it's still a 5-step process. That hasn't changed. What has been added as an opportunity is that for mediation, and it includes a mediation portion that is used in a number of other provinces. We're very hopeful that landlords and tenants will use the opportunity for mediation during the Landlord-Tenant Board process to work out arrangements that actually keep people housed. We've also changed the Act because of Bill 184 that allows the board to consider whether a landlord and a tenant have worked on a repayment agreement. And it gives the Landlord-Tenant Board the opportunity that if they're not satisfied with the agreement, that obviously having a hearing before the board, if the tenant so chooses, is certainly still an option. It doesn't change that at all. In fact, I can argue it adds a step to the process.
Thank you.
John?
I have a question too. Actually, two questions. The 5.7 million, is that just for this project? That's question mark. Is that right?
Yep.
Okay, great. Second question is, what's the split between federal and provincial?
Well, it's a federal provincial program. So in terms of our contributions to the Canada-Ontario Housing Initiative, we budgeted this year almost $1 billion as part of our community housing renewal strategy. So, you know, the federal government and the province have come together with an agreement. So, you know, it's $1 figure under the program. We're not going to differentiate a federal and provincial portion. This is a collaboration as part of the national housing strategy. It replaces another Canada-Ontario program that was previously stated. But this is part of the agreement that the federal government and the province signed moving forward, and obviously includes a local component, both from the Housing Corporation and from the county. Okay, thank you.
This is a question I was talking with Minister earlier. The question would be for the county. Bill mentioned that phase 1 will begin before the end of this year. When is this project expected to be finished?
I don't have an answer for that. Like all projects, as fast as possible, but it's going to be phased in. So this is just a stage one, shoveled in the ground, effectively starting now. And as we can deal with the people who live here and the people who need to be addressed, the human needs, we'll go through. I suspect it'll be a several-year project ongoing.
For sure, because the current tenants have to move out as you guys build.
It's a complex process, and I think the start is now. The finish will have to be determined. It'll take several years, to get it through, but we'll do that. I think our CAO is here somewhere. Maybe she'd like to add to that, or Becca, would you like to add to that?
Yeah, we're deciding to do it in 2 phases, with phase 1 hoping to begin demolition before the end of 2020. And the idea is that as households are built, new houses are built, we bring back tenants, which is the back, as well as tenants in phase 2, phase 1, and continue our construction on phase 2.
Great, thank you so much. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions? Well, thank you everyone for being here for today's exciting announcement. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you.
Just gonna have a photo op.
Jennifer, has the county thought anything about donating the homes or moving the homes for Habitat for Humanity? Anything thought with that?
We're still in the early days. It's a complex project, so we'll certainly look at possibilities about how we can to go through the various phases and whether that's a possibility for phase 1 or maybe for future phases. But certainly we always look at community partnerships when we take on any project.